Hi, my name is Giles Emery. I'm Vice President Corporate Counsel for Mynd Property Management, and I'm going to talk to you today about avoiding and handling security deposit disputes. Namely, avoiding disputes is probably where everybody wants to start, and it really starts, well, what I'll focus on is tips for best practices, so to speak, in avoiding disputes. So it starts with setting clear expectations, and that begins with your tenant move-in, and then continues through the lease, and then again at move-out when they are either issuing a notice to vacate or you're doing a notice to non-renewal. What are the expectations for your tenants move-out in terms of how they're supposed to leave the property, reiterating the expectations that you set when they initially moved in. And then documentation. So at move-in, this typically starts with a move-in inspection where with the tenant, the landlord will walk through and itemize the condition or document the condition of the unit. And then that same inspection form can be used at move out to do your comparison inspection. Your goal at move out is to get your unit returned to you in the same or similar condition as when the lease started, subject to normal wear and tear. Pictures are an excellent supplement to the move out inspection form. So to the extent you can document the condition of your unit at move-in with pictures, and then have similar pictures of the same areas of the apartment or home at move-out, even better. Along with setting clear expectations both at the start and at the end of the tenancy, you will also want to give your tenants an opportunity to remediate or address any conditions. Give them upfront notice of the types of things that are potentially going to be deducted from their security deposits, so they have the opportunity to either remedy or address those before they move out. In some states, California, for example, the landlord's required to give the tenant notice of an opportunity to have the pre-move out inspection, and that goes along with part of the notice to vacate, so you can mutually coordinate a time before they actually hand over possession of the property to do a walkthrough, itemize the types of things that need to be addressed before they move out, and then give them an opportunity to cure those items before they ultimately move out. It's a great practice to do even in states that don't require that, the non-California states. It just is a great way to avoid disputes, have transparency on the types of things that are going to be deducted from the security deposit. The resident can then decide whether or not they want to do some additional cleaning, address spots that are pointed out, or go and move out knowing that they're probably going to have a hit on their security deposit for those types of things. And then documentation. So you want to have clear documentation if you do have to do repairs, if you do have to address appliances, do any cleaning. You've got invoices and the appropriate documentation to back up those charges, and those typically are required to go along with your security deposit accounting that you're going to send to the resident that shows them what deductions came out of their security deposit along with the balance, if any, that they're getting back from their security deposit. So those are sort of best practices. These all sort of layer in with knowing the statutory requirements, the rules and requirements in your particular jurisdiction. So each jurisdiction is going to have sort of a requisite time frame for when a landlord is required to give the tenant either the return their security deposit or give them an itemization of the deductions that are coming out of their security deposit, and this could be anywhere from 15 to 30 days depending on your particular jurisdiction. In California, it's 21 days. You'll also need to know if there are any limitations or requirements around the amount of security deposit you can charge. Some states it'll be a multiple of the monthly rent, whether it's 2 times in California. Arizona, I think, is 1.5 times. Some states will have additional limitations on the amount of the pet deposits, and all of your cumulative deposits usually are aggregated and coming up with that total deposit amount, especially if you have a limitation. And then understanding your statutory, what's appropriate for reductions. It's pretty similar across jurisdictions, but you need to be aware of, usually it's unpaid rent, repairs for damages to either the property itself or to repair appliances, and then any cleaning charges to bring the unit back up to the same cleanliness that you initially rented it for. All subject to normal wear and tear. Courts will also expect you to amortize big ticket items over their useful life, and that's usually paint, flooring, things like that. So if a manufacturer's flooring lifespan is 5 years and you need to replace the flooring after 2.5 years of your residence occupancy, you'd be expected to amortize that and only charge them for the 2.5 years, not the full replacement cost of the flooring. Then also you want to understand what the statutory penalties are, and this is just something good to be aware of. A lot of times jurisdictions will have a sort of a multiplier. So statutory penalties if you don't comply with the regulations in terms of documentation, returning it within the appropriate time frame. It could be anywhere up to 1, 2, or 3 times the amount of the security deposit as a penalty. So those are things to be aware of. And sort of best practices in avoiding disputes. If you do find yourself ending up in a security deposit dispute, all of those things are going to come into play in helping you resolve it, whether it be through an informal settlement, which is hopefully the way you're going to resolve it, versus if you can't resolve things, these typically end up in some kind of a small claims lawsuit or hearing, which again, depending on jurisdictions, they all have local rules on how small claims procedures work. But they're small dollar amount claims that it starts with a review of the charges that you imposed on your tenant, just re-reviewing whether they are appropriate charges, whether they're overreaching in terms of normal wear and tear, were they overreaching in terms of what the condition of the property was when you initially leased it to move out, and did you comply with the statutory requirements? Because if you didn't return or give them an itemization within the requisite time period, you probably have a losing case, even if your charges were valid. Sort of call to action would be going forward. Takeaways are: be organized, be diligent in your documentation, and set clear expectations at move-in, throughout the lease, and again at move-out, on how you expect your property to be left, the condition it was in when they moved in, and what do you expect of the resident when they move out. If you have questions or need help with any of your sort of jurisdictional requirements, local requirements, please reach out to Mynd Property Management. We can help you navigate those sort of landmines to the extent they're out there. Thank you.